Hallelujah. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh,
All right, folks, thank you very much for joining us and choosing us as your stream of choice. We are in the process of getting the feed, so just bear with us for just a few minutes. Once we receive the feed, we will go there live. According to sources, James Comey is going to be talking about the wiretaps. He met with Nancy Pelosi and Paul Ryan privately, and so reporters are going to start asking him some questions about what happened. We just have to figure out what's going on, because we had the feed and all of a sudden it just went away. Thank you very much for those that use Super Chat. We got David and Roosevelt. Thank you very much, everyone. And again, it will just be a few more minutes until we get the feed. Thank you very much.
We've been talking all week about the Trump tweet.
All right, folks. So again, we are trying to see what happened. We had feed of James Comey talking to was going to talk to the people, to the reporters, but for some reason it just went away, and we completely lost it. We have absolutely nothing as of yet. I'm not saying it's canceled, but as of yet, I don't have nothing. I'm trying really hard to see what happened. Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. We'll as soon as it comes up, we'll bring it to you here live. So bear with us. Thank you very much, folks. All right, folks. So I'm getting like mixed signals here. We had the feed, and it got cut off, and now it's completely gone. So I'm still trying to figure out what happened. I'm reaching out to my sources to get a feed as soon as I possibly can. Other people are saying that it's going to start in roughly 30 minutes. So we're going to keep the stream up for just a few more minutes to see if, we get more information, we get the feedback or whatever. We'll stay up here. I know it's coming, but we just don't know when. So like I said, I'll keep the stream up and hope that we get some feed in just a few minutes. We apologize, but in reality, it's not our fault. We had the feed. Something happened. So stay tuned, folks. And we'll be here. Thank you very much. All right, folks. So while we wait, we're going to watch FBI Director James Comey's speech at the Boston Cybersecurity Summit 2017 regarding Russia hacktivism, I guess. So we're going to be checking that out until we get feed from our sources. So, enjoy. And as soon as we get feed from the press conference, we'll go to it live. Thank you very much.
We say that Kevin's taking care of that, and neither of us were telling the truth, right? So I'm pleased to introduce to you today our special agent in charge, Hank Shaw. Hank, in 2015, Director James B. Comey named Harold Shaw the special agent in charge of the Boston Division. Prior to Boston, S.A.C. Shaw most recently served as the special agent in charge of the Counterintelligence Division in New York, where he was responsible for the counterintelligence, counterproliferation, and counterespionage programs. He's been in the Bureau since 1999. He's a former Massachusetts resident and from here, so we're glad to have him home and all his support in the cyber program. So, Hank, thank you.
Morning, folks. Great to be here at Boston College. Thank you very much, Father Burns, for your partnership, support, and hospitality. Good morning, everyone. I'm truly honored to be here to kick off the first annual Boston Conference on Cybersecurity. My sincerest appreciation to Father Leahy and Boston College for hosting this inaugural event, which will undoubtedly serve to facilitate and foster an extremely important dialogue for what we in the FBI believe to be one of our most important challenges faced today, the cyber threat. In today's busy world, I know how much of a commitment it is to take time away from your out of your day to attend a conference. I appreciate your willingness to step away from the daily grind, to participate, learn, and expand your networks. The current cyber threat warrants a healthy discussion, one we need to have at all levels and across all industries. Let's face it, everyone here is at risk at becoming a victim of cybercrime or being targeted by a hostile nation state. Here in the United States, the FBI is the lead federal agency for investigating national security cyber matters, aggressively pursues a variety of cyber crimes and criminal intrusions, and is actively looking ahead to adapt to an environment which is rapidly changing and evolving by the day. We continue to improve on our skills and abilities, but we need to get even better, which will require your help. As a special agent in charge of the FBI Boston Division, I'm tasked with the oversight of the cyber program within our region. And I can tell you, Massachusetts and the greater New England area is a target-rich environment. We're not only home to hundreds of defense contractors, Fortune 500 companies, startups, and hundreds of colleges and universities, many of whom have renowned research and development facilities. But I must add, as our tech sector continues to grow in and around Massachusetts, so does the threat posed by our adversaries. Today, we hope to give you some insights into the state of this threat and what we're doing to lessen its blow. We'll discuss some specific strategies criminals are using to thwart your best efforts at protecting your networks. And we hope to provide you with some context as to how this type of criminal behavior affects you, both personally and professionally. In the vast cyber landscape, I also think we need to be honest in acknowledging that it will be a daily struggle to stay in front of all the cyber threats that confront us today. We must be nimble, constantly reevaluate how we think about these threats, develop new and innovative solutions, and push to become as predictive and proactive as possible. This will take trusting partnerships spanning across the private and public sectors to really make a difference in confronting the ever-changing cyber dynamic. We modeled today's conference after a similar event the FBI has hosted with Fordham University in New York since 2009, which successfully brings together representatives from law enforcement, academia, and the private industry. We believe it's conferences like this, which serves as a bridge, bringing us all together to find new and better ways of attacking the difficult cyber challenges we face, all while forging new partnerships. I can't say more about the significance of effective partnerships. They allow us to combine our tools, skills, and knowledge to create a stronger team. Just like we continue to say in law enforcement, we do not want to meet our partners for the first time in the midst of a crisis. Director Comey is going to elaborate further on this point in a few moments. Not only do we need to get even better at understanding the cyber threats, but how we more effectively interact. Many of these attacks are not isolated. And when too much time has lapsed, our ability to share critical cyber alerts, warnings, and intelligence is also inhibited, as well as the potential for collecting critical evidence that could be used in pursuit of criminal actors or perpetrators. This isn't a new conversation for many of us. We live and breathe it every day. One of the goals of today's conference is quite simple: to further open the door of communications and change the narrative of how we talk about cyber. I'd also like to personally thank Director Comey for taking the time to be with us today. As we know, Director Comey has been at the forefront of discussions regarding the challenges of going dark, and a leader in driving the dialogue about complex issues of cybersecurity and encryption with Congress, the private sector, and law enforcement. Cyber continues to be one of his priority initiatives. He has a keen understanding of the greater impact of cyber, whether how it influences our investigative programs, the continued need to advance and improve the FBI's internal networks and technologies, and recruiting and developing a workforce capable of addressing the cyber threats of the future. I look forward to a great conference and getting the opportunity to meet with you today. Let me now hand it over to the Boston College Provost and Dean of Faculty, Mr. David Quigley.
Thanks so much, Special Agent Shaw, for your leadership and for your and your team's partnership. with my colleagues here at Boston College. It's wonderful to have the opportunity to welcome everyone here, gathered here in Gaston Hall, to Boston College for this first Boston Conference on Cybersecurity. This, as we all know, is a topic that grows in importance for all of our institutions, public and private, and we're fortunate to have so many thought leaders who are advancing the frontiers of data security with us today. The entire team in the Woods College of Advancing Studies deserves praise for their work in organizing this gathering, from Father James Burns, the dean, on down. But let me add a brief word of thanks for Kevin Powers, the lead organizer and the director of our graduate program in cybersecurity policy and governance. Thanks so much, Kevin, for all your work. And now it's my pleasure to offer an official Boston College welcome on behalf of our president, Father William P. Leahy of the Society of Jesus, to our distinguished keynote speaker, the 7th Director of the FBI, James B. Comey. A native of Yonkers, New York, James Comey graduated from the College of William and Mary and then the University of Chicago Law School. Following law school, Comey served as an assistant United States attorney for both the Southern District of New York and the Eastern District of Virginia. Comey returned to New York to become the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District, and then in 2003, he was elevated to the Deputy Attorney General's position at the Department of Justice. Comey left the DOJ in 2005 to serve as General Counsel and Senior Vice President at the defense contractor Lockheed Martin. 5 years later, in 2010, he joined Bridgewater Associates, a Connecticut-based investment fund, as its general counsel. Under the director's leadership, the Bureau has, since 2013, prioritized cybersecurity, directing resources towards strengthening the government's capacity for staying on the bleeding edge of this ever-changing and ever-challenging field. We are so fortunate to have him with us this morning, and I ask you to join me in offering a warm Boston College welcome to Director James Comey.
Thanks for the introduction. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for giving me a chance to share some thoughts with you. This is the perfect place to have this conference, and I am thrilled to be part of the inaugural gathering. I hope there will be many more. It's the perfect place for the reasons that Hank Shaw said, not just because of the challenges and opportunities in this great city, in this region, but because Boston College is a leader in thinking and educating on these incredibly important issues. So this is a great place to have it. Hope you'll do it many more times. You're stuck with me for about another 6.5 years, and so I'd love to be invited back again. And obviously, any place called Irish Hall is a neat place to have this, given my background. What I want to do this morning is share with you some thoughts about how the FBI thinks about the threat we all face, and how the FBIs are trying to address that threat. A key part of that approach is going to involve the partnerships that Special Agent in Charge Shaw referred to. And then once I'm done yammering at you, I'd love to be quiet and take your questions. I hope we have time for that. You can ask me about anything. I'm very slippery. I'll avoid talking about things I don't want to talk about. But the questions have to come from the tables, not from our partners in the back. But let me begin by talking about the threat. To state the obvious, the threats are too fast, too big, and too widespread for any of us to address them alone. The way we think about fighting terrorism is very similar. The threats are hard to see, they're moving quickly. We need to work together to address them. That is every bit as true when it comes to cyber threats. So let me start with who we think of as the bad actors here. I think of it as a stack of bad actors, kind of an evil layer cake. At the top of that stack, from the FBI's perspective, are nation states. Think China, Russia, Iran, North Korea. That's the top of the stack that we focus on. Just below that, and often closely related, are multinational syndicates that are involved in increasingly specialized roles to steal information, to steal money, to steal innovation through the cyber vector, and oftentimes doing it on behalf of nation states, oftentimes doing it on behalf of anybody else who's willing to pay for it. So nation states, international cyber syndicates, the next layer down, actually the group of people that we would lump together under the insider threat. That is employees, workers, contractors, who for any number of motivations might be moved to penetrate a network that is well defended from the outside by penetrating it from the inside. They can be motivated by personal grudges, by ideological beliefs, by money. Next down the stack, hacktivists. This is a motley crew of people with all different kinds of motivations, some political, some financial, some emotional, to try and conduct cyber intrusions. And then actually the bottom of the stack, terrorists. And the reason I put them at the bottom of the stack is that terrorists are adept at using the internet to communicate, to recruit, to proselytize. But they have not yet turned to using the internet as a tool of destruction in the way that logic tells us certainly will come in the future. So those are the threat actors. How do they operate? Well, they're obviously increasingly sophisticated, focusing on larger targets, and looking to exploit the weakest link, which is human beings. Because as strong as we make our intrusion detection systems, as good as we become at patching, as good as our firewalls are, we're only as good as the cyber security, the cyber hygiene of our individual employees. So the whole stack of actors is focused on social engineering to find out how our people think and work and operate, and see if there isn't, through that expanded attack surface, a way into even a well-defended network. What are they after? Obvious. Information, access, advantage. It's not just even about the loss of data. Increasingly, we are worried about the corruption of data. Think about the harm someone could do by an intrusion at a blood bank and changing blood types, an intrusion in a financial institution and changing just a few digits in the holdings of an institution. And of course, we're worried about the lack of access to data that shuts a business down. Think Sony here, which I'll talk more about in a second. The impact is obvious as well. These are more than just attacks on our infrastructure. They're attacks on employees and customers. They are attacks on reputation. They're attacks on our economy and our security. And they're increasingly attacks on our fundamental rights, the rights guaranteed to us as free people, especially here in this great country. So what can we do? We cannot prevent every attack. The attack surface is too big, the weakness of systems and people too pronounced and ubiquitous. But this behavior is subject to deterrence. People conducting cyber intrusions are not high on crack. Right? They're not motivated and inflamed by jealousy or some passion that often motivates people to bad acts. There is a lot of thinking that goes into cyber intrusions. And in that thinking, we believe there's an opportunity to influence behavior, to impose some thoughtfulness on people as they put fingers to keyboard. To do that, we believe we have to be more predictive and less reactive. We think there are three things that we can do together to address this threat. First, reduce vulnerabilities overall, and that involves us in the FBI helping you in the private sector and our partners throughout the government understand what are the bad guys doing, how are they coming after us, what are their tactics, what are their techniques, what are their fingerprints. By sharing that information, we allow you to harden your targets against the bad guys. We also think part of this is making cybersecurity a priority at all levels. I'm talking to a group of people who get it, but it's very, very important that cybersecurity not be one risk assigned to some guy in the basement of your enterprise to focus on, because the threat threatens the entire enterprise, so it must be thought of as an enterprise risk. It must be thought of at the board level, at the C-suite level, as something that has to be embedded in every single thing that an enterprise does. Second, we got to work together to try and reduce the threat, and I talked about that, and I'll hit that a little bit more when I explain exactly what the FBI is doing. We need to find people responsible for the intrusions and hold them accountable in order to force upon bad actors some reflection before they act. And the third thing is, obviously, once any of us are hit, we have to be effective at mitigating the damage. We think we have a role to play there in helping victims understand just what has happened to them so they can get themselves back on their feet. That's what we think we can all do together, but I want to focus on exactly what the FBI's strategy is here, so when you ask questions, you can poke at it and give me feedback. There are 5 parts to the FBI's strategy to address all things cyber, and they're pretty simple. First, we are trying to focus. And by that we mean focus ourselves in a better way. And we're doing that in a number of different ways inside the FBI that may not be apparent to you from the outside, so I want to go into some detail here. The normal way the FBI assigns work is by asking a basic question. Where did it happen? And wherever it happened, we assign it to that field office where the place is. So where did the bank robbery occur? Well, it occurred in the Boston division, so the Boston division will work it. Where were these children victimized and harmed? Well, that happened in the Boston division, and so the Boston division will work it. But when it comes to cyber, that framework breaks down. Because where it happened, if that's all you ask, you may end up with some fairly random manifestation of a threat that is coming from someplace on the other side of the earth, that is hitting many different places in the United States and around the world, and just happens to pop in a particular sign of the intrusion in a particular place. And we think that if we assign the work based on that often random manifestation of the threat, we may not be at our best. And so we've developed something called the Cyber Threat Team model, where we're doing something new to assign work in the FBI. We're assigning cyber intrusion work based on who shows the chops to address that threat. Which field office has demonstrated the greatest ability to respond and detect, respond to, and thwart a particular sophisticated adversary. And whichever field office has demonstrated the best ability on that, we're going to give it to that field office. We call that the Strat Office, Strategic Office. And then, because physical manifestation is a real thing, and there are executives that need to be talked to, there are victim enterprises that have to be visited and interviewed, there are physical machines that have to be examined that sit in a particular place, we allow up to 4 other offices to help. We call those the TAC offices. And to make sure this doesn't become chaotic, air traffic control for this effort is run from the cyber division in headquarters. A particular field office that's shown itself great at a threat could be in Little Rock, even though the physical manifestations of the intrusion are in Indianapolis and Seattle and Dallas. Those offices will help Little Rock, but it's going to go to Little Rock if they've shown that they are good against this threat. Now, this has a not unintended consequence of generating competition in the FBI. We want people working to try and steal ownership of a threat from other parts of the enterprise. I don't mean steal by being sneaky. I mean steal by showing we've got the chops. Here in Boston, you ought to give us this aspect of the Chinese threat because we've shown that we can work it in a great way. We think that will have the effect, that competition, of lifting the entire cyber program in a good way. Second, we've come up with a concept that we borrowed from the world of counterterrorism. Because counterterrorism requires response at a moment's notice to incidents that are horrific and may be anywhere around the country or around the world, we have what are called fly teams when it comes to counterterrorism. Experts in different aspects of responding to an attack who have a go bag with them at all times. And when something happens in the United States or around the world, the fly team goes and hits that spot. So we surge expertise to that place. Where we're going with the same sort of thing with cyber, we've created something called the Cyber Action Team, CAT, where we have experts who know at a moment's notice they have to be prepared, even though it's a virtual world, they have to be prepared to be physically present at the site of a cyber intrusion, an emergency event. And these are experts who are all over the country, but they are part of the Cyber Action Team and know that's one of their responsibilities. And last, in every field office to make this work, we have cyber task forces, where, as you heard from Hank Shaw, we live the concept that we do nothing alone. We bring together great talent from throughout a division like Boston to form a cyber task force, so we have the chops in each of our field offices to respond to threats, to collect evidence, to think in a great way about how the threat is moving. And most importantly, through those cyber task forces, to share information with the private sector and get appropriate information from the private sector. So that's one way we're trying to focus ourselves. The second way we're trying to focus ourselves is by stealing your talent. By stealing the great people who work for you, and you can see our interests are not entirely aligned here, by attracting great talent to work for the FBI to respond to this sophisticated threat. We all face the same challenge here, a shortage of cyber-trained talent. Here's the challenge we face. We cannot compete with you on dough. Now, you have more dough to pay people than we do. You don't come to the FBI for the living. If you did, we lied to you during the recruiting process, and there's no going back. We compete with you by telling everyone your lives are empty pursuits of money. Ours are meaningful pursuits of the protection of the American people. We badmouth you up a storm. I want to be transparent about that. But the pitch we make to people is, come be part of this mission. Come be part of something that is really hard, that is really stressful, that does not pay you a lot of money, that does not offer you a lot of sleep. How awesome does that sound? The good news is, there's a whole lot of people, young people, want to be part of that kind of mission, want to be part of doing good for a living. The New York Times did a survey that I read last year of over 50,000 young people, and they asked them to name their ideal employer. 50,000. The FBI was number 5. Apple was number 4, which is a painful thing to contemplate. Not that it's not a great company, but we got to be ahead of them in terms of attracting people to be part of this mission. One of our major challenges is, summed up by one of my daughters, who said to me, "Dad, the problem is you're the man," which I thought was a compliment, so I said, "Thank you, I am the man." And she said, "No, Dad, I don't mean that in a good way. The problem is you're the man. Who would want to work for the man?" And my reaction is, you're right, but you're wrong. Because if people really knew what this man and woman of the FBI are like, they would want to be part of this mission. And so we're about trying to get out across this land and show people what this is like. The FBI is an addictive life. Almost no one leaves. No matter what you look like, no matter what your background, if you become a special agent of the FBI, our turnover is about the same, about 0.5%. Right? It is addictive work. And so we're about trying to show people, including your talent, what it's like to be part of this mission. And part of avoiding this "you're the man" trap is to be a little cooler than I may appear, to offer these talented young people an enterprise that is more agile than they might expect. We're not going to beanbag chairs and granola and whiteboards, but we're trying to get close to that, to make sure that these great young people understand that although we are enormous, there are opportunities for innovation and agility inside the FBI that they may not realize. New responses to old problems will come from those creative young people who join the FBI. And something else we face as a challenge. To be a cyber special agent of the FBI, you need several buckets of attributes. We need integrity, non-negotiable. We need physicality. If you're going to carry a weapon on behalf of the United States of America, you better be able to run, fight, and shoot, even if your specialty mostly keeps you behind a keyboard. And we need high intelligence and a specialized kind of intelligence. Those are rare attributes in nature. We'll often find people of high integrity, high intelligence who can't do a push-up, or we might find people who can do push-ups and are great behind a computer, but they want to smoke weed on the way to the interview. And so we need to figure out how to find people of high integrity, physicality, and intelligence. And one of the things we're considering is, can we grow more of our own? Attract those great people of integrity, of physicality, of intelligence, and then grow our own specialization inside the FBI to meet the need for the talent that we have today. So, I don't want to give away too many more of our secrets about how we're going to approach this, but among the things we're trying to think about is, are there better ways to offer an interchange between public and private? One of the parts of our FBI culture is, you come and you never leave. Ought we think differently about that? Ought we make it easier for special agents to leave and go work in the private sector and then come back and work at the FBI? Our mind is open to whatever will make sense, and we are going to take great ideas from these young people that we hire. So we're trying to focus on stealing your talent, trying to focus on focusing ourselves in a better way. That's the first. Second, we're trying to shrink the world. The cyber threat has made everybody a next-door neighbor to everybody else. Belarus and Boston are next-door neighbors on the internet. The bad guys have made it small. The way we have to respond is by shrinking it back on behalf of the good people. The first thing we need to do is make sure we are clear inside the government on who has what responsibilities. And at the end of President Obama's administration, he offered us the clarity that so many of us have wanted that makes good sense. The lanes in the road, I hope you know if you're at this conference, but the FBI's responsibility is threat response. To figure out what the bad guys are doing, respond to intrusions, to understand the threat in a great way. The Department of Homeland Security is responsible for threat mitigation, for especially helping people harden the targets to avoid being victimized, and once they're victimized, being great at helping people get back on their feet. And the Director of National Intelligence is responsible for making sure we all have the intelligence we need to understand the threat and to mitigate it responsibly. But here's the deal, it shouldn't matter who you call. One of the things we've gotten better at as a country since September 11th is, it does not matter to whom you report a terrorism threat. If you have a tip and you walk up to a sheriff or to a police officer or to an FBI agent, it doesn't matter, because the information will get to the Joint Terrorism Task Force almost instantly. We have to get to the same place when it comes to cyber. It's not your job in the private sector to figure out, so exactly who's doing what. I think we have clarity, but you don't need to remember that. We have to get to a place, and we're getting pretty darn close, where no matter who you offer information to, it gets to the people who need it to act on it. That should be our responsibility and not yours. And then around the world, we're going to make the world smaller by forward deploying our people. More cyber attachés, special agents embedded in embassies around the world, and intelligence analysts who specialize in cyber. Because even though it's a digital threat moving at the speed of light, it relies upon human relationships to shrink the world for the good people against the bad people. Third, we're trying to impose costs, and I alluded to this earlier. We want to make sure that when a bad actor sits at a keyboard, they feel our breath on their neck. And we believe if they feel our breath on their neck, that will change behavior. We have to literally lock people up who engage in cyber intrusions to impose costs. And oftentimes people think, well, they're halfway around the world. How are you going to find a cyber criminal? Well, cyber criminals vacation too. They go on honeymoons. They go to visit friends. And by knitting together the good people of law enforcement and national security, we are able to lay hands on those people much more often these days than ever before. That imposes a cost that makes the others think about us. And even if we can't actually lock people up, we think it's important to call out the conduct, to name and to shame it. We did that 2 years ago by indicting actors from the People's Liberation Army in China. We did it by indicting actors from Iran engaged in the denial of service attacks in 2012 and 2013. And we believe that has real effect. A wanted poster with your face on it, even if you sit halfway around the world working for another government, gets your attention. And even if you're working for another government halfway around the world, you too dream of traveling. You too dream of your children going abroad to be educated. We have many flaws because we're human beings in the FBI. We are dogged people. We just gave up on D.B. Cooper recently, I think. Took us over 50 years to give that one up. And the man jumped out of an aircraft over the Cascades. We don't give up. We are dogged people who do not forget, and we think that has an impact on people. We think it changes behavior and puts that breath on the back of our neck. And part of this is grappling as a community of nations towards norms. Cyberspace is relatively new to all of us, and we are, bit by bit, trying to establish norms of behavior. And among the key norms that we've had discussions with our counterparts in China about over the last 2 years are an understanding of a framework that goes like this. Nation states engage in intelligence gathering. They always have, they always will. Our job in the FBI is to catch and stop nation states from trying to steal information for their advantage as a nation. That goes on, it will always go on. We will try to get better, they will try to get better. What nation states do not do and cannot do is steal stuff to make money. To steal innovation, to steal formulas, to steal plant seeds in order to benefit commercial enterprise. That is criminal behavior. That is very different from the actions of a nation state engaged in espionage. Believe it or not, since the indictment of the 3 PLA actors 2 years ago, we have agreement with the Chinese that that framework makes sense, and we have seen positive steps towards them embracing that framework and understanding the difference between nation-state conduct and criminal activity, and helping us investigate the criminal activity. So we're working very hard, whether it's through indictment, arrest, prosecution, or simply naming and calling it out, towards establishing a set of norms and through making people think about us before they put their fingers on that keyboard. The fourth thing we're trying to do is help our state and local partners deal with the fact that almost every criminal investigation today requires digital literacy. In the good old days, for those of you who've been around a while, you could execute a search warrant on a drug location and find one of those black composition notebooks where the morons would have written who got how many kilos and who got what money and how it was split up and who was going to do what. Who were the lookouts, who were the runners, who were the enforcers. Today, that same search warrant requires you to take and exploit lawfully thumb drives, PDAs, laptops, tablets, all manner of digital devices. To do anything in the criminal investigative world requires digital literacy. And one of the pieces we're trying to add as value to American law enforcement is better training, better partnership, better equipment to help lift the tide of digital literacy across the United States. Because the FBI, as big as we are, simply can't get to all frauds, all intrusions that are coming at people through the internet. I'm told that people get emails from me saying, I'm in Nigeria, I need you to wire me money. I'm not in Nigeria, I don't ever need you to wire me money. But those frauds rip off people, especially old folks, vulnerable people. And someone needs to be able to investigate that in a good way, and that is almost always our great partners in state and local law enforcement, and we think we can help them do that in a good way. The last part of our strategy is probably the most important for this conversation. We have to get better at working with the private sector. You, in the private sector, are the primary targets of cyber intrusions because the data, the innovation, the money, everything sits on your networks. Because that is where it sits, that's where the bad guys go, whether the bad guys are a nation state, a hacktivist, or a fraudster, or the functional equivalent of a bank robber. Here's a depressing fact. The majority of intrusions in this country are not reported to us. Right? They are kept from us by companies who think, we just need to take care of this thing and get on with our business. Right? We don't need to be entangled with the feds. It'll be such a hassle. We need to remediate this threat, and sometimes wrong, very, very wrongly in my view, we need to pay this ransom and move on with our operations. That is a terrible place to be. Right? It is a great thing to hire the excellent private sector companies that are available to do attribution or remediation, but if the information is not shared with us, we will all be sorry. Because you're kidding yourself if you think, I'll just remediate this thing and it will go away. Because it will never go away. It will be back to hit you, it will be back to hit your neighbors, it will be back to hit your family. It is short-sighted to conclude that our interests are not aligned when it comes to this. Oftentimes people think the FBI's interests are long-term, mine are short-term. We actually have the same. They are the same interests because of the nature of the threat. So how are we going to get you to talk to us more? By yammering at you constantly to explain to you how we operate and why we are practiced and expert at treating you like the victims that you are. We have gotten very good over the last 100 years at treating victims of violent crime like the victims that they are and making sure that they aren't re-victimized by a legal process, by the disclosure of personal information, so they are not re-traumatized by our engagement. We've also gotten very good at doing that in the cyber context, in a way people may not realize. A company that suffers an intrusion is a victim, and they will be treated that way by the FBI. We know, because I was a general counsel at a company, that one of our obstacles are the weenie conservative general counsels. I was a weenie conservative general counsel who were worried about What's going to happen to the information we share with the government? Will it hurt us in a competition? Will it lead to lawsuits against us? Will it violate some obligation we have in a different place? What will it mean with our regulators? How will this all work? There's too much risk with this. Let's remediate and move on. Well, we think we have a compelling case to make based on a track record of hundreds and hundreds of investigations that we will protect your privacy. We will not share data about your employees and your operations, and we will have an adult conversation at the beginning to explain, here's what we will do with the information you share with us so that you, as a general counsel, a chief security officer, a CEO, can make a judgment about the risks and benefits. Maybe after you have that adult conversation, you decide, you know what, I don't want to cooperate. But I think it's highly likely once you understand how we operate that you will. Your main question to us when you're a victim is, so what do you need from us? Well, I would suggest to you, what we need from you is for you to get to know us before there is an intrusion. I guarantee that all of you have significant facilities, have a relationship with the fire department. The fire department knows your layout, knows your standpipes, knows your generator plant, knows the setup of your operation. They don't know the details. They don't know your intellectual property. They don't know any of your proprietary information, but they know enough so that in the midst of a crisis with smoke all around, they can find their way in and save the lives of the people who work with you. I think we need to get to a similar place. We were able to respond to the attack on Sony very, very quickly and remediate it, stop the bleeding, because we knew Sony. We didn't know their proprietary information. We don't know any of their secrets. We're not reading their emails. But we knew their chief information security officer. We knew the basic contours of their network. We knew their physical locations. We knew enough to be on the ground within minutes, hours probably, maybe even minutes, to try to begin to work that, because Sony had taken the time to get to know us. And armed with that, we found our way through a whole lot of smoke to do some good for Sony, which was a victim of a terrible intrusion and attack. If you are the chief information security officer of a private enterprise and you don't know someone at every single FBI office where you have a significant facility, you're not doing your job. Know that you're pushing on an open door. Again, we're not looking to know your proprietary information, but we need to know you in a way so we can help you in a difficult circumstance. Now, part of building this relationship of trust is conversations beyond the formal framework. Since the 1980s, there's been a statute on the books in the United States called the Classified Information Procedures Act, CIPA. One of the CIA's worries in working with the FBI for many, many years was, if we give you people information and you end up using a criminal prosecution to disrupt terrorists or spies, will you jeopardize our sources and methods? And we would say for years, no, there's a statute that provides that we can protect your information. But that didn't get it done, actually. It took case after case after case over 20 years for the FBI to show the CIA that that actually will work, that we will protect your information. We will not burn your sources and methods. That built a trust, a culture of trust and understanding. I think we have to do something similar when it comes to cyber intrusion. I can stand here all day long and talk about what we're going to do, how we are, how we can protect your information, but we have to show it to you case by case by case to build a reservoir of trust. And we are all about that right now, and I hope you will engage in those conversations to help us get to that place where it is a majority of cyber intrusions, and I would hope it would be close to all, that are discussed with law enforcement so we can figure out who's coming after you and how can we stop it from happening again. So those are the 5 parts of the FBI's strategy to address cyber intrusions of all kinds. I want to hit one topic that is front of mind, even though we haven't talked about it a lot publicly in the last 6 months. We've been distracted by other things. But I want to talk about the impact of ubiquitous strong encryption on our work. And I want to urge you to continue to engage in what is a very complicated and difficult subject. The advent, is that me doing that? The advent of default ubiquitous strong encryption is making more and more of the room in which the FBI investigates dark. And I'll use a room metaphor here. There's always been a corner of the room where the FBI operates, where sophisticated actors were who had access to encryption. It's always been around. I mean, not always, but for decades. To cover their information. Did I just lose you? Am I lost you? Okay, let me switch. Go ahead. Just when it was getting exciting. Okay, all right. That's all the time we have. Thank you. Okay, so picture a room. There's always been a corner of the room that was dark to us. And in that corner were sophisticated actors, nation states, spies, the most sophisticated criminals, who would find ways to encrypt their data at rest, sitting on a device, who would find ways to encrypt, mostly the nation states, their communications in motion, passing over a wire. What's happened to us since Snowden, since the summer of 2013, is that more and more of that room has gotten dark as encryption has become the default. No longer just the province of the sophisticated actor, but because it is sold on devices and available through huge numbers of apps, it becomes a feature of the work of the less sophisticated, of drug dealers, of armed robbers, of terrorists, of pedophiles, of bad people of all sorts. And so what's happening to us now, and we'll talk about whether this is bad or good, but what's happening to us is that shadow is spreading from the corner across more and more of our work. And I'll give you a statistic to demonstrate it. In October, November, and December, the FBI received to our examiners 2,800 devices for which we had lawful authority to open. And these were devices that were seized by state and local law enforcement or by the FBI. 1,200 of those devices, so about 43%, we could not open with any technique. Any technique.
All right, folks, I'm cutting in here in front of him. He's just blabbing away. It looks like Comey canceled. We had the feed at the very beginning. We were waiting for him, and then all of a sudden, it cut off, and all information regarding that press conference just completely got suppressed. And who knows? If you guys don't believe me, go to the very, very beginning of the stream, and you'll see that we did have the feed. We were waiting for him, and like a coward, he completely canceled. So thank you very much, folks. We're going to continue this until it's done. This was a rerun while we waited for the live feed of when he spoke to the Boston Conference of Cybersecurity yesterday, I believe. So, again, guys, I'm sorry. I try my best, but it is what it is. Comey's a coward. Comey's a mole. Comey is a double agent, I believe, to be honest with you. But that's just my opinion. If you are new to our community, this not always happens, I promise you, but we do stream everything absolutely live. We do sometimes do a little rerun while we wait for the live event. So we encourage you to join the community by hitting the subscribe button. We're going to be uploading 2 more breaking news stories in just a few minutes after we shut this down. We were doing that. We were filming that while this came up. So we hope that you guys stay tuned. Hit the notification bell. Check out the links in the description below. Follow us on social media, Facebook, Gab, Twitter, all that stuff. Check out our website, goldenstatetimes.com. If you guys want to send me something directly, like a message or a comment or criticism, whatever it is, send it to us through our website. Thank you very much, everyone. Like I said, we'll finish this off. And if there's any more developments, if he stops being a coward and he actually comes back and wants to talk to the press, we will bring it back online and we'll go from there. Thank you very much, everyone. Peace.
Always accepted in this country. There is no such thing as absolute privacy in America. There is no place in America outside of judicial reach. That's the bargain. And we made that bargain over 2 centuries ago to achieve 2 goals: to achieve the very, very important goal of privacy and to achieve the very important goal of security.
One quick thing. If you guys missed the Julian Assange, what's it called? The thing that he had today, the press conference. We have it up on Golden State Times International. We're streaming it live there, or not live, but we're streaming it, the rerun, on Golden State Times International. Look it up on YouTube, or you can check out the video. We actually streamed it live this morning when it happened here at Golden State Times. So check it out. Also, check out Golden State Times International. Just put it up on the search bar, Golden State Times International, for all of your international news. So go and give it some love. Thank you.
Change of something at the heart of our country that affects national security cases that the FBI works, that affects criminal cases that the FBI works. It is something we have to talk about. Maybe it's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing, but it is not something, in my view, that we should drift to. I don't ever want to get to a place where people say to me someday, hey, how come you didn't tell us that the room was going dark in which you operate? And so I'm not going to let that happen. I am keen to force a conversation about this, to have people understand the impact, so we can have an adult conversation. Now, I know people, because I've had lots of great conversations with people who see it differently than I do, and that's fine. I may not be right. But I hear people say, well, you all can get metadata, right? Or you can do lawful hacking. You can develop in secret the techniques that would allow you to bust into those 1,200 phones that you can't open today. Well, here's what I don't think people realize. Metadata is very, very limited, especially when you're talking about an obligation to prove guilt in a criminal case beyond a reasonable doubt, which is a burden that I love and accept, but metadata alone is unlikely to get you there in a case involving a pedophile, a gangster, or a terrorist. And while having other technical tools can be useful, it's incredibly expensive and it does not scale. Right? You may be able to develop a tool that when you have a search warrant to take a particular device to Quantico and open it, but it can't be used broadly because it's perishable. And so it doesn't solve the challenge that state and local law enforcement talk to me about all over the land. Now, some folks have said to me, well, aren't you suggesting we weaken encryption? Or you want back doors? I want neither of those things. I actually believe that it is not a question of whether we like strong encryption or we like weak encryption. I love strong encryption. We use it to protect the FBI's information. We believe it is essential to protecting against exactly the kind of cyber intrusions that I talked about. Strong encryption is a great thing. It allows us to protect people. But we also believe that user control of data is not a requirement for strong encryption. I'll give you an example from the FBI's life. Right? We issue personal...
All right, folks. So I have some breaking news about the channel, not about politics. We just hit 50,000 subscribers. Just this second, we've reached 50,000 subscribers. So, like I have promised in the past, if you are new, this is new information. But if you've been with us for, if you joined us today or you joined us last week or whenever, you were entered to win a Trump hat. We have 3 of them. We have a Make America Great Again hat. It's red, the popular one. We have a Trump number 45 hat, and that's in red, and we have one in white. So I'll be picking 3 people at random, whether you subscribe right now, today, earlier today, last week, last month, last year, no matter when you subscribe, at whatever point, you will be entered to the random draw. The random draw will be tonight. Okay, it will be at 8 p.m. Pacific. 8 p.m. Pacific. I will stream it. I'll figure out a way to randomly pick 3 people. So the stream will be at 8 p.m. Pacific tonight. Okay, don't miss it. Make America Great Again hat, number 45 hat, white and red. Okay, so tonight. I will be contacting you as a direct message. If you don't reply within 24 hours on that direct message with your address, okay, I'll be contacting you. If you don't get back to us within 24 hours, we'll do the draw again until all 3 hats have been confirmed to their recipients. I will send it to you for free as a thank you from us to you. Again, a Make America Great Again hat in red, number 45 hat in red, and 1 in white. So 3 lucky community members will be getting their hats soon. So stay tuned. 8 p.m. Pacific, we will be doing the drawing of the 3 Make America Great Again hats and number 45. So yeah, thank you very much, everyone. Awesome.
We do that helps optimize both of those values. The cyber threats we face are enormous. I don't know if we can stay ahead of them. And I think to say otherwise would be hubris. We're standing in the middle of the greatest transformation in human history. All of our lives are changing in incredible ways. I think it requires a humility on the part of the FBI and on all of us who care about this issue to understand we may not know enough, we may not be smart enough, we may not be fast enough, but starting from humility allows us to make better decisions. We have to be humble enough to know, okay, we're pretty good, but we can be a lot better. We need to ensure that cybersecurity is a priority for every enterprise in the United States at all levels. We need to get better and faster at sharing information in appropriate ways. We need to make sure we have the right people on board to help us fight that threat. And we need to build trust between the government and the private sector. And most of all, we need to work this together because the world has shrunk, making all of us, the good people, next door neighbors as well. Thank you for being part of that conversation. Thank you for being part of that solution. Thank you for your willingness to try and make us safer. And I appreciate your listening to me.
All right, folks, so that was Comey speaking. Comey's a total coward. I'm sorry, but he is. He was supposed to have a discussion today regarding his meeting with Nancy Pelosi, his meeting with what's his name, Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan. I'm sorry. And he didn't. He canceled. So yeah, guys, thank you very much for watching. Again, we just hit 50,000 subscribers. Thank you very much. We'll be doing a giveaway at 8 p.m. Pacific today. So don't miss it. 3 lucky subscribers that have either you joined right now, you joined earlier, we joined today, whenever. As long as you're subscribed to this channel, you'll be entered to win those 3 hats. We'll be doing the live giveaway at 8 p.m. Pacific, so don't miss it. Thank you very much, everyone. Peace.
Before you shouldn't do something like that, but before you consider it, you should talk to us.
March along, sing a song with the army of the free. Count the brave, count the true, who have fought to victory. We're the army and proud of our name. We're the army and proudly proclaim. First to fight for the right and to build the nation's might, and the army goes rolling along. Proud of all we have done, fighting till the battle's won, and the army goes rolling along. And it's high, high, hey, the army's on its way. Count off and pages loud and strong. For wherever we go, you will always know that the army goes rolling along. First to fight for the right and to build the nation's might, and the army goes rolling along. Proud of all we have done, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star
All right, folks. So I'm getting like mixed signals here. We had the feed and it got cut off and now it's completely gone. So I'm still trying to figure out what happened. I'm reaching out to my sources to get a feed as soon as I possibly can. Other people are saying that it's going to start in roughly 30 minutes. So we're going to keep the stream up for just a few more minutes to see if, we get more information, we get the feedback or whatever. We'll stay up here. I know it's coming, but we just don't know when. So like I said, I'll keep the stream up and hope that we get some feed in just a few minutes. We apologize, but in reality, it's not our fault. We had the feed. Something happened. So stay tuned, folks. And we'll be here. Thank you very much. All right, folks. So while we wait, we're going to watch FBI Director James Comey's speech at the Boston Cybersecurity Summit 2017 regarding Russia hacktivism, I guess. So we're gonna be checking that out until we get feed from our sources. So enjoy, and as soon as we get feed from the press conference, we'll go to it live. Thank you very much.
We say that Kevin's taking care of that, and neither of us were telling the truth, right? So I'm pleased to introduce to you today our special agent in charge, Hank Shaw. Hank, in 2015, Director James Comey named Harold Shaw the special agent in charge of the Boston Division. Prior to Boston, SAC Shaw most recently served as the special agent in charge of the Counterintelligence Division in New York, where he was responsible for the counterintelligence, counterproliferation, and counterespionage programs. He's been in the Bureau
All right, folks, thank you very much for joining us and choosing us as your stream of choice. We are in the process of getting the feed, so just bear with us for just a few minutes. Once we receive the feed, we will go there live. According to sources, James Comey is going to be talking about the wiretaps. He met with Nancy Pelosi and Paul Ryan privately, and so reporters are going to start asking him some questions about what happened. We just have to figure out what's going on, because we had the feed and all of a sudden it just went away. Thank you very much for those that use Super Chat. We got David and Roosevelt. Thank you very much, everyone. And again, it will just be a few more minutes until we get the feed. Thank you very much.
We've been talking all week about the Trump tweet.
All right, folks. So again, we are trying to see what happened. We had feed of James Comey talking to was going to talk to the people, to the reporters, but for some reason it just went away, and we completely lost it. We have absolutely nothing as of yet. I'm not saying it's canceled, but as of yet, I don't have nothing. I'm trying really hard to see what happened. Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. We'll as soon as it comes up, we'll bring it to you here live. So bear with us. Thank you very much, folks.
Proud of all we have done, fighting till the battle's won. Thank you.